Welcome to Backroom Talk.
We're talking about coaching. And
Yeah, we're talking about coaching.
Professional fitness coaching.
Yeah.
How do we identify the professional fitness coach out in the wild?
If you do something full time and you get paid for it and you're not just doing it as a hobby, you're a professional.
Yep. How's relationship building connected to the professional coach?
What that means generally is almost baking in what you need to pay yourself in your expenses. Leadership and what leadership means and how you have to be a leader to be a professional coach, right?
To listen to more Backroom Talk, be sure to subscribe. Learn to design personalized programs with the OPEX system of coaching by heading to opexfit.com.
Well, guys, welcome to another episode of Backroom Talk. How are you this week, Carl? This is an interesting pose you're striking.
I wasn't ready for you to start talking. I was doing like an anterior delt stretch and a yawn. Good, yeah. It's a good week. It's only Wednesday. It's one of those weeks though, right? It feels like it's Sunday today.
That's
I'm not gonna lie.
because we had a 4-day week yesterday, and now we got to go the full 5 days. And I love my job, but I also really like free time.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I feel the same.
Would you work a 4-day week if you had the option to do like 10-hour days and then nothing for 3 days? Or not?
Well, I kind of manipulate myself. Like this afternoon, like on Wednesday afternoons, I just block my schedule off and do my thing. So no, because I'm not like sprinting throughout the week ever.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yes and no. Like there's ebb and flows throughout the week, but no, I think my flow's good personally. Yeah. The 4-day thing. I think it's beneficial every few weeks to pull one of those, but I don't know. I haven't thought deep enough about it. Like it does. The 5-day thing doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
And I usually go like 7 days, but not like I don't like work all day every day, but I usually do something every day of the week.
Yeah, I think I prefer work spread out over more days, but just having more flexibility inside of that.
Me too.
Versus
I feel the same way.
like chained to a desk for a 10-hour work day.
Yeah.
To like piece out and like, have 3 days where you can completely unplug, which I think is kind of where that notion of the 4-day work week, 3-day weekend, like what people are thinking when they do that.
Yeah. If I worked an office job and I absolutely hated what I did, I would for sure want to sprint beginning of the week, get more days off. But I kind of feel like I'm here most of the time. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there, but there most of the time. So I feel pretty good with our flow.
Yeah.
And I go on vacation next week.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And I'm the week after.
Yeah. Sorry,
so.
late next week I leave,
Yeah.
and then it goes into the next week.
I
But
love
I'll
summer.
work like 3 or 4 of those days.
Yeah. I'm
And
getting
then-
a tattoo this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the one of me?
It's the one of you, the one
Yeah.
where I'm laying on my back holding you up and you're flying.
And I'm like doing one of those like spit things, and like when you're a kid and like you go over someone and you like do the spit and then right before it touches them you slurp it up.
I'm going red because you're saying when you're a kid. I do that shit to my husband all the time. And I think I'm so funny.
You gotta hope you're not super hydrated because you're not slurping that shit back up. It's just gonna fall right on his face. You know what I mean? Like the viscosity goes away as the more hydrated you are. So.
And I'm always very hydrated.
Oh, so Jacob gets spit in his eyeball
All
a lot.
the time. Well, this was an interesting start to this conversation.
All right. Yeah.
Point being, there's a lot of good stuff going on over the next month or so.
Yeah.
Lots of fun trips and things.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about this article I found in GQ.
Yeah, let me pull this thing up.
The title of it is Here's What Science Can and Can't Tell You About the Best Way to Lose Weight. And so it's written for a GQ reader, right? You're
No, those people.
those people. Are you a GQ reader?
No.
No.
I don't know why I said no like that. No,
like
I'm not.
outraged.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, that's kind of like asking, do you read Men's Health for your fitness education?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you might be a stylish millennial man wanting to stay up to date with all the trends, but maybe not.
Yeah, you can just go to, Scottsdale here and walk around and kind of gauge. I'm not going to go off task. I have a story about Fashion Square the other week. I'll tell you that offline.
Okay, you guys do not get to hear that one. Well, the point is this is written for the end consumer, your typical male who's looking for some life and health and fitness and fashion advice. So I thought that was interesting. And the subtitle is trying to nail a one-size-fits-all diet is kind of missing the point. which is not what you get a lot of the time when you read a publication written for the end consumer. It's more like keto is the answer or try the paleo diet. You don't often get a balanced approach. And I thought it was interesting. It went in not super in depth to any science, but compared the problems with short-term nutritional trials. Gave the example like in the beginning of time restricted eating and fasting, where one study showed that there was no difference between participants who were fasting and those that weren't, another one that did, which I think just does a nice job of highlighting to clients and, you know, that end consumer that the science behind a lot of this stuff is flawed and there's a lot that we don't know, and there is some stuff that we do know, but anyone who's trying to like sell you a silver bullet in nutrition is probably cherry picking their evidence a lot of the time.
Yeah. As you were talking, I just clicked on, so his name is Andrew Zaleski. So I just clicked on his name. It looks like he does a lot of writing for GQ. And I'm just like browsing through the other articles that he's put out. And I don't want to like mislead and say like he's putting out good stuff because I have no idea. I'm just looking at the titles. It looks like he's putting out some pretty good stuff, like talking about, you know, simple rules and, you know, hitting on, you know, slow carbs and, you know, the first line there has some like health conscious pieces and there's no good or bad, which is good to see. Has some pieces on like counting macros and the truths behind it. It just seems like this guy's putting out some good stuff. So that's I haven't even read this article all the way through, so I don't want to like jump the gun and be like, Andrew Zaleski, good job, buddy. But it looks like he's putting out good stuff. I think that's important going in. So usually when I read articles like this, I do that. Like I look at the person and who they are, where they came from, what other things are they hitting on, just to show like, you know, what are this person's experiences and this thing that they're writing on. And it seems like this dude has a lot of experiences in nutrition. I don't know if he's a dietitian or something like that, but yeah, I mean, it's good to see that, right? Like we know it, right? That there is no one size fits all. There is no you know, best way to do anything. You know, we talk about principles all the time. I think in nutrition, it's even more important to have solid principles to lean against, because if you look at nutrition in any sort of dogmatic way, and if you're a coach and you look at nutrition in any sort of dogmatic way, you're going to do a percentage of your clients a massive disservice if you think that there's only one good way to do nutrition, or to talk about nutrition or to prescribe nutrition. So yeah, I mean, I think I didn't read the entire article, but I think he's saying pretty much the same thing, right? Like there's a lot of different considerations that you have to keep in mind. And you know what we would say, and this is just fresh in my brain because we just had a pretty long cohort call yesterday talking about prescribing lifestyle and nutrition, and you know, we all want the answer, right? It's like, Carl, what is the equation to get to that BMR? Like, what does the BMR mean? How do we use that to give people exactly what they need? And the truth is, even that is very flawed. Yeah. Equations are very flawed. And they're flawed because every individual is just different. Like, we can't say, you know, Emma's NEAT is, you know, plus 500 calories because she does X, Y, and Z, because there's so many things that are happening inside of Emma's metabolism specifically that are just different than mine and yours, where it's like, you know, on a day-to-day basis, we're burning, you know, varied amounts of calories, where, you know, we may go one day where we're extremely resistant to carbohydrate based on getting, you know, less sleep last night or being really stressed. Whereas normally if we went and got our blood drawn and it's like, hey, you're very insulin sensitive, right? Like, get after it. But it's like now bad lifestyle stacks up over a week, and now you're resistant to that. So if you're a coach that's like, high carbs are good for everyone, you're going to be wrong in an amount of time. If you're a coach that says low carbs or keto is good for everyone, you're going to be wrong in an amount of the time. So I think you just have to have like, you have to be able to have an open mind when it comes to prescribing nutrition.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that's highlighted later on in the article. And guys, I'll link it below. I'd recommend you give it a read. And it might even be something you want to pass on to your clients to have a look at it as well. I think there is huge benefit to people being exposed to mainstream media that is sensible and maybe aligned with some of the stuff we say as OPEX coaches. I think sometimes we say stuff and our clients might just like roll their eyes and then go back to open their Men's Health and read about the keto diet. But things like this that reinforce that, quoting scientists, again, coming from a mainstream publication, I think can be beneficial to share. But one thing that is later on in the article was a discussion of a groundbreaking 2015 paper that followed an 800-person group eating a total of about 50,000 meals, and it measured their blood glucose levels after each meal to look at the responses. And what they expected was similar responses from similar foods. They got very different blood glucose responses from different foods, and that highlighted how different people react to different foods.
Yep.
Some people are more carb sensitive, some people are not. And so that's just an important reminder there that there's really no one size fits all when it comes to choosing the right foods for people.
Well, even individuals specifically. Let's say they did that. Was it 50,000 meals?
Yeah.
But if they did that, say they did that 50,000 meals with a single person, even the variance in that single person and blood glucose levels would be so different over an amount of time based on what they're doing in life. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm doing something like this with Janice right now where we're testing blood glucose twice a day. And we're looking at, how different foods affect that. And, she's sub 50 grams of carbs right now, just to kind of like set that baseline. And, she's asking a lot of questions like that as well. It's like, why is my glucose at, 80 and I'm fasted? And yesterday it was at 68. And then we start to talk about like, what did you do yesterday? What did exercise look like yesterday? And how all of that stuff and all those stressors actually affect the way that we process glucose in the system. So even with a single person, there's so many variances. The goal is to find trends. That's the goal. It's like the amount of time where you're at this blood glucose level based on these factors is fairly consistent. The amount of times that you're at this blood glucose level based on these factors is fairly consistent. So based on those two things and us doing this for 2 months, let's say, we can almost confidently say that when you eat this type of food, it affects your blood glucose in this way. Without doing that with every single person over a long period of time, you actually don't know.
Here's the thing, the quote that this scientist followed it up with. What this told us is that this one-size-fits-all diet is probably flawed. We understand that rather than measuring foods and giving them a number related to glycemic index, we should measure people instead, which I think speaks so wonderfully to that idea, that individual experimentation and looking at just one person's reaction to those 50,000 meals is so much more valuable than just saying these foods are good and these foods are bad, or these foods are low glycemic index, these foods are high, because we all react differently.
Yeah, every single person is their own experiment. Yeah. When you work with a new client, we've talked about this before, right? Like you work with a new client, that opens up the possibilities to learn so much more because that person is now a new experiment for you. And that's why it's tough to do, what we try to teach coaches to do and to coach people one-to-one. And coaches need to understand that, right? It's not one size fits all. Like you have to go into this thing with an extremely open mind and not think that you know the way, because there's always going to be a person that comes that's going to disprove your hypothesis.
What are any advice or resources for coaches who are thinking about, doing something like at-home blood glucose testing, and why would you do that in the first place?
Yeah, I'd say go through a doctor. I wouldn't it's pretty low barrier where it's like, I would be careful in what you're prescribing based off of that information, because we're not doctors, right? Like, well, there are probably some coaches that are also doctors. Awesome. If you're not those coaches, always make sure that you're not prescribing things based off of things that are just inside of your head. For me, I just like to identify trends to just know a little bit more about the person, so I can give them better recommendations. In terms of, where can you find information on like how to go about that? Yeah. So the internet is very robust, right? So, just understanding, someone's baseline glucose levels, is important. But if we were to say like, okay, what are like some solid blood glucose levels for the general population? I think that is super flawed because I don't think you can actually say that. But generally, it's put out there if your blood glucose is over 100, that's cause for concern. There's a lot of other factors, right, where it's like, type 1 and 2 diabetes and, insulin resistance and all of that we have to keep in mind. But I think it is interesting just to have a person test their blood for an amount of time if you think metabolism might be an issue for someone, and just kind of gauge where they're at baseline. But to gauge where someone is baseline, you have to allow them to continue to eat the exact same way that they're eating right now. It's almost like getting a food log for someone and saying like, hey, don't change anything. I want to see where you're at right now. So it's starting there. And then, if someone's coming in with pretty high blood glucose levels, and the goal is to decrease those, for people that are able to handle it, you just completely take sugars away. So you take carbohydrates away. And that's what we're doing, right? So we're going to do that for about a month, completely take them away. We're going to test on a daily basis, and we're going to see, where those glucose levels are going. This is going to happen, but when we look at it over 30, 60 days, we want the trend line to be doing that. If the trend line is not doing that, then you have to seek medical advice because it's like, okay, something's going on with insulin now, right? Yeah. Something's happening in the system. So gauging that is a really good idea. And Rob Wolf puts out some really good information.
I was going to bring him up, yeah.
Yeah, he puts out some really good information on reintroducing sugars and carbohydrates and different types of sugars and carbohydrates, because that's important as well. We respond individually to this is a big one, right? A sweet potato versus a white potato. Which one is better? It's like, I don't fucking know. Whatever one you respond better to. So that's a good way to understand which one you respond better to. Wake up, eat 400 grams of white potato one day, and then test your blood glucose 90 minutes to 2 hours later. See where it's at. The next day, wake up, eat 400 grams of sweet potato. Compare those two and look at, okay, which one are you more sensitive to, right? Like if after the white potato you're at 120 and after the sweet potato you're at 85, eat sweet potatoes instead of white potatoes. So every person is actually an N equals 1.
Yeah. All else being equal in that situation too, though, because what if you had a really crap night of sleep before eating sweet potatoes?
Yeah, and I said those two numbers so like bipolar, just to drive that home. Like I intentionally didn't want to say like 90 versus 100, so it was like 125 versus 85 or something like that. So yeah, also keep the lifestyle stuff in mind as well.
He put out a book on that like a few years ago. What was it called?
Gosh.
Sorry.
I read it. We'll put it in the
we'll put it in the show notes.
Put it below. Yeah, gosh, now it's gonna bother me.
We have these fancy iPad things. We probably could just do a like very quick Google search.
Yeah, keep rolling. I gotta figure this out.
Carl's gonna get to the bottom of it. Rob Wolf. Let's see here.
Wired to Eat.
There we go.
Is it? Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, that was a solid read. Yeah, Rob put out some really good information in that one, and I think we talked about that.
I remember talking about it a long time
ago. I remember that was 2017. So I thought it was 2016 that we did it, but it must have been 2017. I took a couple clients through that process that he laid out, and it was interesting to see kind of trend lines and what kind of sugars and carbs affected people differently and stuff like that. But just keep in mind, people have to be willing to prick themselves in the finger and bleed into a machine every day.
Definitely.
But now technology is so good where it's like you prick it, you put in the paper, it sucks your blood up. It just needs a tad, needs 5 seconds, and then it calculates.
Yeah, pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah.
It's got to be for the right client though, and the person that wants to investigate that, because that could just be totally overwhelming for the wrong person. So
yeah, there needs to be a conversation that happens, and you need to like walk them through what it looks like and what it feels like, and ask them seriously, like, are you okay to do this on, day by day basis, sometimes multiple times per day.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're asking someone and trying to tell them what it looks like and feels like, you probably want to do it on yourself first.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Nutrition. Anything else there to wrap that up?
No, I thought you said nutrition. Like we're talking about nutrition. I was
like,
that wasn't the plan.
That was nutrition. We're talking about coaching and
we're talking about coaching.
Professional fitness coaching.
Yeah.
How do we identify the professional fitness coach out in the wild? What what do we look for in our coach? So
a tie. Tie.
Tie and athletic polo.
Maybe in Europe.
Maybe in Europe. The
I was
matching tracksuit.
kind of careful when I said it. I'm like, I'm gonna offend people when I say that. That's like a European thing. Like you think about like the athletic polos tucked in.
Yeah.
The nice tapered pants, like these pants, athletic polo, boom. I think it comes from football, soccer. Yeah, that's where I think about it, like managers.
Yeah. Well,
Managers at practice.
Appearance matters for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just to go a little surface level to start it off, I think if you're calling yourself a professional fitness coach, you probably don't want to look like a grimy, sweaty, smelly gym bum.
Yeah, I mean, but sometimes, Georgia, we got to grind, and showers, there's no time for showers in the schedule when you're grinding as a fitness coach.
At least take a bird bath. Like, go into the sink, wash those underarms, splash some water on your face before you get out there with your clients.
Coming from me, if I don't have like 3 showers a day, I'm like...
Carl's disgusted by the slightest bit of filth on his skin. Yeah, why this topic today, Carl? Because I know you proposed this one.
Yeah. To be fair, we're doing a knowledge series in 90 minutes on this topic, so it was just so top of mind for me that just getting ready for that knowledge series. It's always an exciting thing to hit on, and Emma and I just finished the professional, and we had a section on being a professional. So over the past couple months, it's been something I've been thinking about a lot and reflecting on what we've said in the past, and how can we talk about this subject without alienating people? And what I came down to is like, you can't, right? You can't. Like, people will feel a bit alienated when you put like, the stake in the sand and you're like, this is what we believe a professional fitness coach is. But to go back to your original question, why are we talking about it today? It's important because right now, fitness coaching isn't seen as a profession.
Yep.
Let's be honest, it's not, right? If you start talking about, doctors and teachers and lawyers and police officers and engineers, like, fitness coaching doesn't just like slip off the tongue in the general public. And the reason is because it's just so different across the globe. Fitness coaching means something totally different, not even across the globe, on this fucking street.
Yeah, from gym to gym.
Right? Like we have, what do we have? Like 3 or 4 gyms on this street alone. So, and we just do like a loop every day. So it's like we just see all these gyms and like what's happening. But that's what's weird, right? It's like, that's why I think it's not seen as like this profession in this one thing, because it's unclear, and our principles are different than their principles, and we do it this way, they do it that way, we want it to feel like this, they want it to feel like that. When you hire an engineer, your experience face to face might be a little bit different, but the outcome is going to be the same. You're going to get this thing, and that's what's a little bit weird and a little bit off right now, is we're not all speaking the same language.
Definitely not. And like you said, just to the general population, they don't look at a fitness coach and think professional, at least for most people. And this is something I definitely struggled with when I was making the choice to not go to law school and to pursue fitness coaching instead, which was in the eyes of my parents, who at the time I was really concerned with impressing.
Mm-hmm.
Being a professional was being a lawyer or a doctor, and that's like what my whole family does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being a fitness coach was something that was just a hobby and a distraction and frivolous and like fun, and they totally didn't and still don't, to be honest, respect the field at all or see great value in it. And my perceptions around what a fitness coach or a coach in general were formed from my experiences in sport, in the gym, with these people that I really looked up to and admired, and who had a really positive impact on my life and the people around me. But I look at my parents, and they look at, a fitness coach as like the woman in front of the curves class, shouting orders to all the ladies, like pretty, easy job, not seeing a lot of value in that. And we just have very different perceptions around what that person is and what they do.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, because I have a similar story when I decided to go, okay, I'm gonna be a fitness coach full time, because I was gonna go to medical school through the Army, and I decided to not do that and instead do this. And I didn't have the pressures of like, family saying that's a bad idea, blah blah blah. But that was in my head. I'm like, is this a good idea? Because you think about, not to offend the woman or the man in front of a curves class, but you think about the barrier to get there. It's non-existent. you know, when we think about, you know, quote unquote real professions from most people's standpoints, there's a barrier, right? There's something to say, I went to law school and now I'm a lawyer. I went to medical school, I went to school to learn to be an architect, and now there's like that barrier to actually get there. So I think that's why we look at, you know, that transition from like, you know, undergraduate into that postgraduate piece and the bigger ticket professions. There's an extended thing that you have to do before you go and do that job. And in fitness, that's just not there. So I think that's a big thing. It's low barrier. You can, you know, just decide one day to do it and spin up a business and start doing it, which I think is awesome. And I think it's not awesome for the people that have no business doing it. And I think that goes to what I was going to talk about next, is just like, you know, and what we say is like intentions or outcomes being misaligned across the entire fitness industry, where, you know, some people's outcomes that they want is they just want to feed themselves and they want to eat, right? So they're not like, they have no beliefs. They don't really give a shit about anything. They don't really give a shit about anyone. They're just like, I need to do whatever the market wants me to do so I can survive and eventually thrive in this industry. That's where it gets really weird, and that's where you see people like, you know, selling their souls, and, you know, the percentage is off on Instagram, and I'll get sponsored by any company. I don't give a shit what they do, just to kind of put me up and make me seem like I'm this bigger figure in the industry and to make a little bit more money. So I think the outcomes being misaligned and the barriers not being there is a really big deal.
Yeah, the barriers piece is tricky, right? Because on the one hand, I think it is fantastic that someone can have a really good experience in fitness and share that with their family or their friends, and like start coaching someone in the garage and like actually have really great success there. And that's where a lot of coaches start. Mm-hmm. They have a really good experience in fitness. They find it valuable. They start with a few friends and family, and then they realize pretty quickly, well, I got to professionalize this a little bit. I need some more education. I need some systems. So on the one hand, I do think a low barrier to being able to do this thing is beneficial. Like, you're not going to have a doctor who's just, you know, all of a sudden like giving vaccinations and like fixing broken bones just because someone did that for them. Like, that's never going to happen. Yeah. So I think it's beneficial that people in fitness can, but on the other hand, you do end up with this like really oversaturated market with like no consistency in skill sets and competencies. Yeah. And I don't know where to sit on it, because on one level it would be awesome if there was the registered fitness professional, you knew you could trust that person, they had the official stamp of approval. But on the other hand, you may lose out on some of those really passionate people having their first foray into the industry. Yep. And also like, who's regulating it, right?
That's the thing. Who the fuck's the authority? Yeah. That's the thing. And that's what I respect about, you know, what CrossFit did with NSCA, and they had that battle back and forth. That's what CrossFit said. They're like, why are you the fucking authority, right? Like, why are you the ones that are saying that this is what a trainer or a fitness coach is? So I don't think we can have that, because there is no, as we sit right now, unless this completely changes over the next couple decades, there's no unbiased authority that can sit on top and say, this is what fitness is and this is what you have to do to become deemed a fitness coach. There's no one even in the running to be able to do that, because there's a lot of bias in the industry. So whoever's in the running to do it, they're going to make it shape whatever their biases are. Anyone would do that. That's like, you know, someone being on top of an Olympic organization or federation and having like economic biases in how they run that thing. That's why the Olympics are set up the way that they are. There's no money in that stuff. That's intentional, right? There's no money in it because the idea and the goal is so it doesn't get clouded. It still does, right? Because there's things outside of financials that cloud it, but that's just hard to get to. So it depends on where you sit on, do you think the cream should rise to the top and anyone should be able to do it? Or do you think that there should be like this bigger barrier and then let the cream rise to the top after this bigger barrier? I think I fall on the latter a little bit, where, you know, I think people should have the opportunity to dabble, right? Like, we have to have the opportunity to dabble. If you're like, hey, you have to go to school for six years to, you know, train someone in your garage, it's like, fitness isn't that complicated at the end of the day to be able to like take your mom out to the garage and like, you know, teach her some things in resistance training. But on the other hand, it's like, when does that line get drawn from someone that's just doing it versus someone that's a professional? And I think that's where the conversation needs to go today, where it's like, how do we identify where you are in that context?
So let's lay out some initial definitions then of a professional fitness coach.
Okay, let me just read these.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to what we did behind that board there. So dictionary definition, there's 15 of them. I grabbed one. This is one that we use in CCP. So dictionary definition is someone that is engaged in a specific activity as one's main paid occupation rather than as a pastime. So that's essentially that's saying, like, if you do something full time and you get paid for it and you're not just doing it as a hobby, you're a professional.
Yep.
That's it, right? So I think we have to take that a little bit further, because there are an amount of people that I can think of off the top of my head that do it full time, but I wouldn't deem them a professional. Mm-hmm. So it's the person that we laid out before, where it's like they don't actually believe in anything. They just do anything that make the next dollar. Their model shifts every year based on where the market says it should shift. So the definition that we lay out, so we like to build on that definition by adding that a professional fitness coach is educated and experienced in delivering consistent success and results to their clients. Delivering unique value to each one of their clients ensures a professional fitness coach earns a full-time wage. So there's like some context as to why they're earning that full-time wage, not just selling their souls to do it. Making it possible for coaching to be a full-time career. What's more, professional fitness coaches move the profession forward by teaching their coaches and clients how to be autonomous in and out of the gym. So there's a lot of things in there when we start talking about ideas. So idea number one is you're doing this to help people, right? You're helping people, you're teaching people. You want them to eventually be able to do this stuff on their own, because fitness isn't it's becoming a commodity, but it shouldn't be, right? Where it's like, you should be able to develop your own fitness. I mean, you do. You should be able to go into the gym and develop your own fitness without the assistance of anyone. But you went an amount of time where someone helps you, you went through some education, you did this and that, and now you're completely autonomous in your fitness. Everyone should have the opportunity to eventually get there. If we're like hiding the answers from clients and we're like, I don't want you to know what's behind this whole thing because I'm scared that you're eventually going to figure it out and go and do it on your own. You're not doing it for the right reasons, in my opinion. So yeah, a lot of small pieces in there, but that's our definition of a professional fitness coach.
Yeah, I think that notion of building autonomy and fitness, like almost being like a public good versus something that we keep behind closed doors,
Yep.
is so powerful, because there are a lot of people that lack the resources to have access to what might be deemed as like great fitness based on like paying a coach to be able to help them for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that a definition like that is going to change any of the inequality that exists in fitness, and the fact that a lot of people don't have access and probably won't have access to good fitness. But over time, if we can get more clients, with their hands on that education, to be able to extend that out to their families, who can spread it to their own families, like that really pushes that mission of every person there doing their ideal version of fitness forward so much more than just like, I'm giving you this one workout,
Yep.
You do this for this session, and it only exists in this like really limited time frame.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, a lot in there. Yeah, we could probably talk for an hour on, definitions and ideologies and challenge each other a little bit, because this will evolve, right? This will evolve. It has evolved.
Yeah.
We used to be a lot more steadfast on like, if you're not in it for the right reasons, get the hell out of here. And now we're kind of like, people have to find their way. If you don't check the boxes on that definition right now, but you're like, I want to become a professional fitness coach, that's okay. We all started somewhere. We started as part-time coaches, right? Like, if you're like, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that was like doing one thing. They had zero experience in fitness coaching, and then the next day they were all in. They were coaching a bunch of people, and they're doing it full time. There's always that transition period to becoming, a full-time professional fitness coach.
Yeah, I mean, there was something I noticed in that definition, which was the word experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that implies there has to be a period of time spent learning and gaining experiences. And until you've had that, which you can't cheat, like you can't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden have experience or read a bunch of books and call that experience. You have to have time in the trenches. And so that immediately eliminates your brand new, fresh out of school or fresh out of, taking their ACERT trainer from calling themselves a professional fitness coach. Even someone who's, going through CCP and hasn't yet completed their case studies. Like until they've had that experience and worked with a diverse group of clients, they're not a professional fitness coach yet, just because they haven't had that.
Yeah, and experience means a lot of things, right? It's like working with a bunch of people, doing a lot of the things yourself as a coach. That all sits in experience as well.
Yeah. The getting results piece too, I found really, really beneficial because
you can coach a shit ton of people. You can coach a shit ton of people and get no results. And we'll talk about that toward the end of the conversation, I believe. But you can coach a lot of people, get no results, and just bank on bringing more people in over time.
Yeah.
But for most, that's going to run out. For most with not a lot of influence, and most of us don't have any influence really, like at a large scale. But we'll talk about how much influence we think people need to be successful.
Yeah. So what comes next in identifying a professional fitness coach?
So I think the next thing, and I don't want to beat this one to death because I feel like I talk about this too much, but I think it's good to hear the same things over and over sometimes. But just believing in something.
Yeah.
Like you have to believe in something. And, if we laid out the attributes of a professional fitness coach, they believe in something. And do I think that there's professional fitness coaches that don't practice anything close to our ideology and our methodology? Yes. Right? Yes. We may not agree with what they believe in, but they believe in something and they check the boxes on what we laid out as our definition. So we have to say that person is a professional fitness coach. So we're not just laying this definition out and saying you have to be an OPEX coach to be a professional fitness coach. That's not the case at all. Because we want to be a part of that. We want to be a part of moving the fitness industry forward as well, even if it goes against our best interest. And that's easy to say, but it's harder to do. So yeah, just believing in something, right? Where it's like, why are you doing this thing? What is your main purpose in doing this? And if you don't have the answer to that, you're just going to be lost today or end up being lost because it's like you have nothing to fall back onto. And I know we talk about that a lot and on the competence side and like falling back on your principles and using your principles as, what did Sam call them?
Bumpers.
Yeah,
Thanks,
bumpers.
Sam Smith.
Yeah. He took the guardrail thing to a next level, so I appreciate that. But using those as like the guardrails, it's the same idea with beliefs. If you don't have beliefs, you have no guardrails. Like you can't stay within a lane because you don't have a lane.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as you were talking about the importance of beliefs. And I think one thing we look for from a professional is incredible consistency. Like you want to go to your doctor or your lawyer and you want to know what you're going to get from them and the idea that they're operating by the book, right? Like they have these principles, these beliefs that they follow, and they're going to stick with them and be consistent with them. And what you're going to get is based on those. You can trust their professional opinion. And I think the same thing goes for a fitness coach. So if a fitness coach doesn't have principles or beliefs to fall back on, they're going to get flustered and caught up when their client comes to them and asks them a question, or they're going to write a random program that isn't consistent with those principles. And there's going to be mixed messaging, right?
Yep.
That client isn't going to hear the same thing over and over and over and over again, which you said it as we went into like this little part of the conversation. I know I say it a lot, but I think it's beneficial to hear things consistently. It's the same thing for clients. Like you want them to hear really consistent messaging around fitness, building autonomy in fitness, daily movement, sun exposure, all of these things that we preach. Because unless they're getting that, if they get a mixed message the next day, immediately they're going to lose trust.
Yeah. It was funny. We talked about it in the cohort call. One of the questions was, how do I get my clients to really buy into this idea of, behaviors and lifestyle and kind of stop worrying about, the back squats and the bench presses. And my response back was simply, you have to believe it first, because we put off an aura, right? We put off an aura. Some humans are smarter than others, but I think we can all, as humans, kind of feel if people are genuine in what they're saying. And if you're telling people, hey, behavior and lifestyle is really important, but in the back of your head, you're just like, because OPEX said so, you're not going to get very far, right? Like if that's what you want to push forward with your clients, you have to really believe it. So back to the beliefs part, it's like you have to believe in something, and to get head out of the clouds a little bit and think about like, where does this come into play on a day-to-day, tangibly? Imagine being a coach, waking up on a Friday morning, and you have 15 clients to program for, and something comes up, and that time that you have, that 2 hours you had, is now 90 minutes, and you start thinking about, how can I take shortcuts to program for this amount of clients? If you have no beliefs, or your belief is not aligned with like, I want every one of these people to get their ideal version of fitness, honesty, and all that stuff is a part of my belief system, what are you going to do? You're probably just going to copy and paste someone else's workout into their piece and be like, okay, I won't do that next week, but it saved me 15 minutes this week. That's very easy to do if you don't actually have a belief system, right? And not to like, I won't go any further than that. But yeah, that's, giving people, shitty programs is really easy to do if you don't believe that you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, you do it once, and I think it becomes very easy to do it a second or third time when you realize it saved you time, if, again, you don't have that belief that's grounding you.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to think about something like tangibly of like, if you don't have this belief system, where can that show in a negative light to your clients? And I think that's like a very easy one for coaches to connect with, where, we've all been behind the 8 ball a little bit, where you sit down and you have to do some program design or get ready to, do some communication and Coach RX or whatever. And you're just like, oh man, I wish I had 15 more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just don't take shortcuts, right?
Seriously.
Yeah.
So part of the definition above was connected to getting results, and then there was also the autonomy piece. And I don't think you can get either of those things with like really surface level relationships where you don't like truly connect with that person and help, walk them towards those pieces, right? It's different for everyone, and it can't just be like a high five or, I know your name, but I know nothing else about you, kind of a relationship. There has to be more behind it, and you do have to be invested in that person's success. Doesn't mean you like ride the roller coaster with them, but you got to care, right? Yeah. So how is relationship building connected to the professional coach?
Yeah, I think when we look at, building relationships, it means something different based on what type of coaching you're doing. For us, I think it means something a little more than it does for other models, because we work so interpersonally with every human being. So for us, it's really important. And how it relates to, leading to autonomy, I think transparency is extremely important. And I'm just thinking about, what was this like last week? I was having a conversation with a girl that I've coached for quite some time. She's from Denmark. Her name is Matilda, and we're talking, and she's seeing a lot of success and she's feeling really good. And I asked her the question with like 5 minutes left in our consultation, and I was like, I forget how I phrased it, but it was something around like, you need to start thinking about how long you even need me to coach you, right? Like, what are you going to be doing in the next year or two? Because she's like one of those people that like comes to a consultation with like a list of questions, and like she's like learning as she goes, and like she's really excited to do it. And we've had so many of those consults where that was something where I wanted to kind of challenge her with and ask her that question. And it was clear that she hadn't really thought of that. But she was just like steadfast, like, this isn't your way of firing me, right? And I'm like, no, I'm just saying, like, you need to start thinking about what fitness will start to look like when we're no longer working together, because we're not going to work together for the rest of your life. Let's be honest. And she was like, yeah, I think I'm equipped enough to, do this thing on my own. I don't want to right now, just make that clear, but I think I'm equipped enough to do that on my own. And that just felt really good, jumping off that call and knowing like, okay, if this relationship ended, like I had enough impact in this one person where she could go off and do this thing all on her own and feel really good about it. And in our model, the reality is you can't have that impact with thousands of people, right?
Too much time.
Yeah, so you have to be okay with, over your lifetime as a coach, it's like you may have that impact with a couple hundred people max. You know what I mean? So that's reality when we start looking at, what does this thing look like in the big picture, and what is scale for me as a individual design coach and all that. It's like, for most people, it's not impacting thousands and thousands directly. So if you want to do that in this model, you need to think about ways to do that indirectly, or just feel really good about impacting hundreds of people, you know?
I think it's really cool when people start solving problems for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you no longer have to give them the prescription. You can turn it on them and let them give you the prescription.
Yeah.
I think that's a really beautiful moment where you
Mm-hmm.
start to see that person coming towards autonomy. Like they've gone from that role where they are the client, I don't want to say passively doing the training, but like receiving the information, to actually being able to critically think about it and put it in play for themselves. That's a really nice like switch flip moment where I think, it is time to begin to have those conversations, because you don't want to throw that at someone too early on.
Yeah.
They're like, you're leaving me?
But not all clients, autonomy means something different for every person as well. Not all clients are Matilda and can go off and like design their own training programs and feel good about it. Autonomy for some clients means that they feel self-sufficient in the gym, using the program that their coach gave them. That's like the highest level of autonomy for some people. So I don't want to like misrepresent that every person needs to get to the point where they're designing their own training programs. So coaches, relax, take a breath. You'll still have a job. But yeah, I think autonomy does mean something for a lot of different people, because I can think of a couple clients off the top of my head where I'm like, yeah, they'll never just like go off and feel excited to even learn to design their own training programs.
Certainly. But they'll be okay if they run into like less than ideal situation, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
If training doesn't go to plan, or they can't access a gym for 1 week, or all of a sudden they're traveling and they're in a different environment, like, they're going to be able to figure it out for themselves and like make a little substitution or find another way to get movement in. Well, let's not give everyone too much credit.
Yeah, I've had many failures.
Sure.
Yeah, with clients that just, I couldn't change them, right? And that may have been me. It may have been me wanting them to do something that they didn't want to do. But yeah, I've had a lot of clients where it was just like, I've had to like say like, hey, this just isn't going to work. Like we're not vibing. Our outcomes are so misaligned that, I don't enjoy this, so that's reality too.
Yeah. Anything else to hit on the relationship piece?
No, I don't think so. What about, wherewithal or competence, or, knowing what to do? I think that's an important thing, and I don't want to go too deep into this one, but I think it's important to hit on, because that's all we do, right? That's all we do. It's like we educate coaches, and we think that is a massive piece that coaches need, professional fitness coaches need. You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too deep into that, but I think competence is an important one.
Yeah, I think it's saying that it's important. It's okay not to know all the answers too, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to know every single thing your clients ask you, or be able to program for every single person that comes to you. You probably don't want to program for every kind of client persona out there, but you do have to have the ability to figure out the answers.
Yeah.
If one of your clients comes to you and asks you something, you don't have to have the answer right on the spot, but like, man, you got to figure that out if they're asking you
or
those
just send
questions.
them to someone that does have that answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've become a lot more at the latter end of my, well, I guess I'm still coaching a little bit, but nowhere near as much as I used to. The latter end of my like full-time coaching career, I got a lot more confident and comfortable with, not knowing the answers to things. And that was so relieving, where it's like, this is my lane. I need to focus on getting as good as I can inside of this lane and not worry about things outside of that. And that's why I never dove too deep into things that were outside of my perceived lane, because our lanes are all different. It's all based on our beliefs and what kind of coach we want to do and what we want to lean into and what we don't want to lean into. So there was a lot of situations that I can think of where, I had contacts in my local community where it's like, go to this guy, go to this woman, go to, you know what I mean? Where it's like, that's not my thing, that's their thing. So I think that's really important for coaches to have like a Rolodex of people that you can refer out to.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about professionals. That's exactly what you would expect from your doctor. If you go to see your general practitioner, you don't want them to be like trying to fix like, some problem you're having with your ear. You want them to send you to an ENT. So people expect that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a shameful thing to refer out. People expect when they go to a professional to be sent to someone for more specific answers for a more specific problem. So
even if it's a coach that has
Totally.
Different experiences, and we see that on the big dog side all the time, where we'll have clients that run into issues, and our coaches are like, but this other coach has a lot of experience in that. I won't go into detail, but yeah, I mean, there's just usually coaches specialize in different things. Or put a lot of their focus and experiences in different things. So I think as coaches, we have to understand what our things are, and more importantly, we have to understand what our things aren't.
Yeah, and don't be ashamed of asking for help. I certainly ask Carl to check my work all the time.
Yeah, and I'm like, Georgia, you're fine. You're good, man.
Maybe that confidence piece needs a booster.
Yeah, the next thing I think that is important to hit on, again, lightly, and hit on it in a little bit different of a way, is leadership and what leadership means and how you have to be a leader to be a professional coach, right? Like when you're coaching, you have other people's health and wellness in your hands. Like you're responsible to some extent for their health and wellness, or they're putting that responsibility on you. So you have to have the ability to lead those people to wherever they want to go. So I think that's always an interesting thing, and it's almost I kind of see it as like a push and pull deal. And I'm not saying that in like we're pushing back against our clients, they're pushing back against us, blah, blah, but that is naturally happening. You can just think about, preparing for a consultation, the like 3 minutes prior to you, or like you turning on, if you're consulting over Zoom or something like that, or they're coming in the office, like the 3 to 5 minutes prior to them getting in front of you, you're kind of like thinking about, what does the last month look like for them? What are their issues? What do you have to solve for in this consultation? What are some things that they may have said over the past couple weeks where you didn't agree with, and now you need to like educate them on, why we're not doing that, or why we need to do it a different way. So that's what I mean by that push and pull. So you have to have leadership skills to do that. And I think leadership and like, relationship building and communication skills are almost all the same thing when we're looking at coaches, because we are the coach and we have a bunch of clients underneath us. And I'm not trying to look at this from like a hierarchical stance where, we're above them, but we are, right? They're looking for us. They're looking at us for the answers. So we have to have the ability to effectively lead the people that are underneath us.
Yeah, and I mean, going into that consultation piece, it is really important to take a leadership role in that, not just like, let the client take over, because at the end of the day, they are paying for a certain service, and there's information that you need to get from them in that 30-minute window that you have, and there's things they need to get from you as well that you need to work through together. Mm-hmm. So taking that moment to think about like, what does the big picture of the month look like, versus letting the client come in and get like caught up on the little thing that's like bothering them then and now.
Yeah.
That leadership role is that ability to step back and let them, be that guide to let them take a larger look at what the last month looked like, versus getting caught up in the emotion of now.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, if we look at, characteristics that I would find important to be a leader as a coach, it would be practicing what you preach, right? Or like the teach, learn, move, create.
Yep.
that James brought to the forefront a few years ago. So just like doing all that stuff on a daily basis as it relates to coaching. It's having the ability to be empathetic with people, right? It's having the ability to be extremely caring, extremely consistent. It's having the ability to understand that everyone's situations are different. It's having the ability to understand that you can't get so caught up in those situations and people's problems where now it's affecting your relationships with your other clients, or worse yet, your relationships at home with your family or even with yourself. So I know we kind of call that the detached caring thing. So I think that's really important, that you don't let all of your clients' stuff become your stuff, like your personal stuff. So it's like that balance of, empathy, but not taking those problems home with you.
Yeah, I think I want to go back to the teach, learn, move, create piece very briefly, because I think maybe early on in the career where there's like kind of that like grind, like working long hours kind of mentality, a lot of the times coaches sometimes lose the learn and the move piece for themselves, and maybe even the create, right? They're not even really taking the time to sit down and create in program design. They're just like letting it wash over them and not really putting a lot of thought behind it. And it becomes about, working with a client that's right there in front of them right now, but they're not thinking about those other pillars that are so important for balance. And all of a sudden they are no longer prioritizing their own movement and learning through movement. They're not prioritizing learning outside of like just working with clients, because at that point in their career, working with clients feels like the most important thing. And it might be, right? Like just having a lot of time in front of people, working with a lot of people early on is really important. Putting that time in is essential, but there has to be a move back to finding balance in all of those areas.
Yeah. I look at those things as, you have to have the ability to almost periodize those things in your life, where they're always all undertones, right? Learning might be you listen to audiobooks on your way to work, right? That might be your learning for 3 months, right? And that's like an undertone, right? Like that's just always happening. Your moving might be, 3 to 4 times a week, 60-minute sessions, but you're extremely consistent in those. And that's not like the priority. Your teaching might be you having conversations with your clients in consultation. And that's like this teaching undertone. And the overtone is creating. You're working with your clients. It's like, I just got 60 clients. I am swamped in working with these clients. But if we look at this from like a periodization standpoint and periodizing those things, always prioritize just one of them, right? Like what you're prioritizing right now is the creation. And that's okay. Everything else can be an undertone. You don't have to think like, I need to do 3 hours of this and 5 hours of that. Like you don't have to get that specific there. It's just like you're just doing those things as a coach always, but sometimes you're doing one thing a lot more than others.
Yeah. I really like that way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Applying periodization to the career.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where balance sometimes is skewed a little bit, where people think that balance means that I need to be doing a lot of everything. That's actually not balance. Doing a lot of everything. Balance is focusing on one thing, maybe 2 things, depending on what those things are, and continually doing and taking care of all of the other things that you need to take care of. That's balance.
Yeah.
It's not like, putting in 5 hours of teach on Monday and 5 hours of, like, you're going to get burned out really quickly. So I think that's important for people to understand as well.
Definitely. Should we talk a little bit about money?
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about money.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an important part of it, right?
Yeah.
If someone is trying to build a career as a professional fitness coach, they have to be able to feed themselves and their families, and they have to make money, and not just like, I'm making a paycheck right now. They've got to be thinking about what that looks like if they're doing this thing. Because if they're a professional fitness coach, they're going to be wanting to do this thing for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, up until retirement, maybe.
Yep. Do you want me to take it?
Take it.
Okay, I'll take it. Yeah, money's important. I think there's too much in this to like say, okay, here are like all the considerations you need to think about around money. But generally, we need to make enough money to take care of ourselves and not to be so stressed out that everything else falls by the wayside. So I practiced this before reading this book in a very similar way, but Profit First is a very interesting book for coaches to take a look at and read through. And what that idea means is that in I'll make it really simple. What that means generally is almost baking in what you need to pay yourself in your expenses, and you taking your profit before you pay anything else. And that doesn't mean like, build, 10K in revenue on a month, take 5K for yourself, and you have, 8K in expenses and don't pay your expenses. It's not that. It's just when you look at, your financials, you put yourself in your financials. You don't just say, I'm going to pay everything and I hope I make some money. That's where businesses die. That's where coaches die, is when they say, I can't do this anymore. I haven't taken a paycheck for 6 months. Not saying that's wrong, but you need to plan that. If that's going to be the case, if you plan on not taking a paycheck for 6 months, you need to obviously have a runway of a lot more than 6 months to be able to do that for yourself. If you have no runway as a coach, you have to bake what you need to make in quote unquote profit into your expenses. And you need to plan on taking care of yourself. I think that's probably, 1 or 1A reason as to why coaches die, is because they actually can't do it. They're not making enough money. And it's so fucking sad when you see coaches that have families and that are doing that. And they have like a super supportive significant other at home, and they're just like, one more month, 3 years passes, and they're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm $150,000 in debt and I have nothing to show for it. Yeah. I just have to like sell all this equipment and hope I make $20,000 back. I need to go and like do some other thing. And that's like a real story that I've seen at least 3 times. So those are just examples of people that didn't take care of themselves first and make sure that themselves and their families were taken care of. They put their clients first. They put this idea of I will be successful one day first, and it just never came.
Yeah, I like slight change of pace, but I was on Facebook this morning in like a personal trainer group that I'm a member of, and
you.
Yeah,
no,
I know. No, it's
I'm just kidding.
The conversations are really interesting, that's for sure. I do a little bit of market research there. But there was a woman who posted who was looking for a trainer job. She'd like just got a cert, and I think she went to a Planet Fitness to look for a job, and I think they told her she was going to make like $10 or $13 an hour coaching, and there was no opportunity to coach clients, so there was no room for like
what was she doing? Was she working with people or like front desk type stuff?
Working on the floor, like a trainer at Planet Fitness. I didn't get much more context other than reading through this thread, but then there were a bunch of people going back talking about like coaching on the floor in a Planet Fitness, Anytime Fitness kind of scenario, and they just pay a flat fee of like $10 to $13 to like kind of manage the floor.
You can't be fucking deadlifting in those places. They need that person that's $13 an hour making sure people aren't deadlifting.
Seriously, no
grunting.
That's
crazy, but she's coaching people.
Yeah.
Or like training people. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, isn't that? But you look at that and you're like, well, yeah, if that is what trainers think they have to do and what they have to make, then how the hell do they think that they're gonna, make a sustainable career out of this?
Yeah, you look at, the more levels there are to any business or organization, the more fat that gets trimmed off. Yeah. And that fat usually means the person that's on the floor doing the work or doing the labor, they're not going to see a lot of upside in those really big, and I don't want to like say all commercial gyms are like this, but sounds like Planet Fitness for sure is, where, they actually don't care about, just like they don't care about the clients that come in because they're just like volume. They also don't care about the trainers that are on the floor because they're probably looking at volume. They're looking at, month over month margins, and they're trying to stay afloat right now as well. So that doesn't surprise me at all when looking at those bigger organizations.
Yeah, it's like a foot in the door kind of job. Like that's all it could be for a trainer.
Yeah, but I don't even look at jobs like that as a foot in the door. I'd rather that, I don't fucking know this woman, right? But if I did, I'd be like, don't do that. Go to a park and train 3 people a week. You'll make more money than you would make at this Planet Fitness, and that's a foot in the door, right? It's like you're actually working with people. Don't know what they're doing on the floor at Planet Fitness, but I doubt they're actually working with people.
Yeah, it's a tough industry. Like unless you're in a great model like an OPEX gym, or you walk into some kind of like boutique micro gym model, it can be a really, really tough industry to make money unless you're working for yourself and you're starting your own thing.
Yeah, it's all give and take, right? Because we truly believe the OPEX gyms model is the greatest model in the world. But why don't we have thousands of OPEX gyms?
It's harder.
It's harder. The barrier's really high. And I'm not saying we put the barrier high because you have to go through Business Accelerator and you have to get a mentor and you got to do this and blah, blah, blah. It's just the model in which we do fitness is higher barrier. There's easier ways, quote unquote, or more scalable ways to deliver fitness. If you don't truly believe that every person should be getting their own design in exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, blah, 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 it's not a great fit for you. So the reality is, I think we have the best answer in the world for coaches to be able to come in and make a really good living for the rest of their lives and set their futures up. And we're seeing it play out right now in real time. So it's like we want to all like stand on the rooftops and be like, what are you idiots doing, coaches? Just come in, go through CCP, open up an OPEX gym or go work in an OPEX gym. But the truth is, the market's not ready for thousands and thousands and thousands of OPEX gyms right now. As it relates to money, it's like we also have to show value. We have to show that, because OPEX gyms, you're not going into OPEX gyms and spending $99 a month.
$10 a month like Planet Fitness.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, and we don't get free pizza either.
Hits our margins.
Hits our margins. No, but in reality, we're asking for, 2.5, 3, 4, 5x that at some gyms, right? Like we have gyms that are pushing $500 a month for this service. So the market's not ready for thousands of those right now.
No, it's not. And I mean, I chat with coaches all the time, and we do get a fair number of inquiries of people who are looking for the next thing, like the silver bullet, the next gym franchise that is going to solve all of their woes, and they're going to open this thing and like it's going to be the best and they're going to make so much money, boatloads of cash. And I'm like, yeah, we have the answer, but it's not for you. Like you're not there yet. You got to believe in it first. Like,
well, you got to believe in it and
get experience too, right?
Well, but we're OPEX, right? Like we're not, I'm trying to think of a brand that would be this. I can't think of a fitness brand that is this right now, but we're not a fitness brand that you put on your door and you have hundreds of clients beating down the door to come in because of the branding on the front. We're just not that. And quite frankly, we won't be that anytime soon. So coaches need to understand if you come into it, there's going to be a significant amount of work, just like there is if you were to spin up any business. There's no business that you can spin up. Remember that eBay stuff where it's like buy and sell on eBay? People are making a lot of money. So, but there's no businesses outside of that one where you can just come in and spin up and be like, yeah, I want to go from in the red to in the black in 6 months. And I want to be making, $10,000 profit in 12 months. It's like, we can't promise that, but that happens. That happens quite often in our model, but it only happens because the owners are really good and they're driving it. That's not happening because OPEX is really good. That's happening because we're bringing in really good coaches. They're learning our model and they're just executing it perfectly. So I'd love to pat us on the back and be like, oh yeah, we're crushing, but we're just bringing in really good coaches.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I feel like let's just wrap it there with a big pat on the back for those guys. But is there anything else you see in those OPEX gym owners who are so successful that you see as identifying characteristics for a professional fitness coach that we haven't hit today?
Yeah. The thing that always comes to mind when I think about a, solo gym owner, entrepreneur, and it's the ability to have the three personas, the artist, the manager, and the entrepreneur. On the artist side, you have to love what you do. You have to love coaching people. You have to love building relationships. You have to love building programs, all of that stuff. Manager, you have to love building systems. You have to love managing things. The gym, coaches underneath you, if that's the case. Your financials, your metrics, like you have to be able to do that. I don't want to say you have to love that, but you have to be able to do that and set really good systems in place where you can do it in a low barrier way on a month by month basis. And then in the entrepreneur, you have to be able to kick your legs up and think really big and think about what your purpose is and what your vision is and where you'll be in X amount of years and where your business is going. The best OPEX gym owners, in my opinion, have those three personas. And that's not to say that they're all like, 10 out of 10s on those personas. Some of them are like 1 out of 10s, but they put the systems in place. It's usually in that manager persona where people just don't like to do that stuff on a month-by-month basis, or they don't know how to. And when you try to teach them, it's just really overwhelming. Those gym owners are just like, they're down packed on those 3 personas, and they've locked them in. So, and the gym owners I'm thinking of, some of them, I look at them as like awesome entrepreneurs. Some of them I'm like, they're awesome artists. Some of them I'm like, they're awesome managers. But it's almost like what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses and what's worth bringing up. Some of them aren't bringing up those other things because they don't need to. They've brought in other people to fill those, or they've built really good systems to fill those.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Well, good job to those coaches.
Good job, OPEX gym owners and OPEX coaches. We have a lot of good OPEX coaches. I'm not going to lie.
We really do.
Yeah, it's very refreshing to, jump on calls with all those people and, just saying the good stuff that they're doing in their communities. Pat on the back to OPEX coaches, not just gym owners.
Definitely. And I mean, not to do a hard sell to CCP, the coaching certificate program, but if you're listening to this and you are like trying to figure out what it means to be a professional fitness coach and make that path for yourself, like Carl here and James Fitzgerald, they do that with coaches every single day. This conversation is all grounded in the work that you've done with thousands of coaches through that program. So we do have a solution for you. We'd love to see you in CCP. Apply. We'll have a chat, figure out if it's right for you.
Get in there.
Yeah.
Get in that
We'd
CCP.
love to have you.
Get in that CCP.
Definitely.
Hey, if we don't know the answers, we'll try to figure them out.
We
with
will.
you.
Like we said earlier.
Yeah. No, we've done that a few times with more than a few times.
Definitely.
With coaches.
Yeah. And I guess last thing, guys, as always, make sure you subscribe. Leave us a review. Let us know what you think. You love us, you hate us, I don't know.
I got blocked from Instagram.
What?
Yesterday. Yeah. I was like unfollowing a lot of people.
Oh yeah, you got shadow not shadow banned, but
what is it?
So no, that's different. Shadow banned is where you don't.
I was like, I don't want anyone shadowing anything on me.
Yeah, no, that's
okay.
Not it. Different thing. But they thought you were doing something you shouldn't.
Oh.
Probably.
Yeah, because I was like looking at following, and I was like, I only want to follow people that I have relationships with. So I started doing that. Yeah. And they fucking blocked me for like 2 weeks, so I can't like do anything on Instagram.
Wait, for 2 weeks?
Yeah, it was like you are blocked until this date, and I think it was like the 18th, maybe so 10 days. I guess.
You can't post anything?
I don't know. I haven't tried.
Oh my gosh! Well,
they don't want people. I can't like remove. I can't like anything. I can't do anything. Yeah.
They thought people do the game where they like add a bunch of people and then remove them, and Instagram got smart and because.
What does that do?
You add someone as a friend, often they'll add you back.
Oh, got it.
And so you like boost up your following by do that. And there's like bots that do that where they just like a bunch of accounts and then unlike them later on. And so Instagram sees that and thinks that it's malicious activity.
All right.
That you're trying to game the algorithm.
Sorry, when you told people to like and stuff, that came to my mind. Sorry for extending the episode. Thank you guys. We appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe below, blah, blah, blah. Same thing.
Carl's probably not going to reply to
you
on
I can't reply. I'm blocked.
So...
I'm blocked. I'm out of there. See you guys.
Give him a call instead.